Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
It always starts quietly, doesn't it? Like a whisper in the corridor that suddenly turns into a full-blown rumor storm, and before you know it, the entire baseball world is leaning forward, listening closely, wondering who's about to be swept away by the trade winds. That's exactly where we are right now, because all signs point in one very specific direction, and the Blue Jays off-season, already dramatic enough, feels like it's about to hit another gear entirely. So settle in, because this is one of those stories that starts with a name hardly anyone's talking about and ends with implications that could reshape an entire season. And yes, if you enjoy this kind of deep-dive drama, now's a great time to like the video, share it around, and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. There's something poetic about the timing of it all as well, because this off-season has felt less like a tidy checklist and more like a long, winding novel, full of side characters who suddenly step into the spotlight. While headlines scream about superstar chases and blockbuster dreams, the real tension has been quietly building around one player who doesn't dominate talk shows but keeps appearing in serious reports like a recurring clue in a mystery. The Jays have been busy, the phones have been ringing, and behind closed doors, one particular trade chip is starting to feel less like depth and more like currency. That chip is Joey Loperfido, and if that name doesn't immediately jump off the screen for some fans, that's precisely why this situation is so fascinating. An article dropped recently describing him as the Blue Jays trade chip nobody is talking about, which in itself feels almost ironic given how frequently he's now being mentioned by people who actually matter. Loperfido was outstanding in AAA, showcasing that rare all-round toolkit, the sort that makes scouts nod appreciatively rather than jump out of their seats. He can hit, he can field, he can run, and he can defend multiple spots, yet the cruel arithmetic of roster construction means talent alone doesn't guarantee opportunity. The uncomfortable truth is that the Jays simply don't have a clear, everyday role for him, and baseball, as romantic as it can be, is ruthlessly practical. When Ken Rosenthal previously reported that the Jays were considering adding a reliever by trading one of their lesser outfielders, Loperfido's name sat there alongside Nathan Lukes and Miles Straw like a quiet warning. Miles Straw, for all intents and purposes, feels untouchable because his role is defined, valued, and adored by the coaching staff. Nathan Lukes earned trust last season. That leaves Loperfido, talented, proven at AAA, and frustratingly in between. What makes this more compelling is that Joey Loperfido isn't a fresh-faced teenager waiting patiently for his chance. He's not young in prospect terms, and that matters. Last season, he appeared in 43 games, and while the sample size was limited, the performance was enough to raise eyebrows. This wasn't the same player who struggled after arriving in the Yusei Kikuchi trade back in 2024. This version looked more confident, more complete, as if he'd finally learned the language of big league pitching and was ready to speak it fluently. And yet, the door never fully opened. That's where frustration turns into leverage. From a front office perspective, this is precisely the kind of moment you capitalize on. A player coming off his best major league stretch, limited though it may be, with strong minor league backing and positional flexibility, is exactly the sort of asset you move when value peaks. It's not cruel, it's strategic. And when you look at the Jays' current outfield picture, even without any blockbuster addition like Kyle Tucker, the space just isn't there. Add Tucker into the equation, and suddenly Loperfido's path becomes a dead end. This is why the latest rumors surrounding bullpen targets feel less like idle speculation and more like breadcrumbs leading somewhere specific. Dennis Santana's name has surfaced, and it's surfaced for a reason. The Pirates aren't exactly beating down the door of contention, and Santana has quietly been one of the more effective relievers in baseball. A 2.18 ERA last season doesn't shout for attention, it simply delivers results, and the year before wasn't far off either. Yes, his earlier career had bumps, including his time with the Yankees, but relievers are creatures of context, and Santana seems to have found his. Now, let's be clear, this isn't about pretending Joey Loperfido alone fetches a reliever of Santana's caliber in a neat 1-for-1 swap. That's fantasy. But baseball trades are rarely that simple. A package, perhaps Loperfido plus a prospect or two, starts to sound far more realistic, especially for teams looking to balance present performance with future depth. The Pirates might hesitate, given some of their recent additions, but the logic still holds. If Santana feels like the dream scenario, Jimmy Herget represents the practical alternative. Coming off a strong season with a 2.48 ERA across 59 games, Haguet isn't flashy, doesn't light up radar guns, and doesn't dominate highlight reels. What he does is get outs, and for a bullpen, that's the only language that truly matters. At 32, he fits the profile of a reliever you can slot in immediately, someone who stabilizes rather than transforms, and in many ways, that's exactly what this Jays bullpen still needs. Imagine, for a moment, the tension of a late September game, the crowd restless, the margin razor-thin, and out comes a bullpen featuring Jeff Hoffman, Dennis Santana, and Tyler Rogers at the back end. That's not just depth, that's intimidation. That's the sort of relief corps that shortens games and changes managerial decisions before the first pitch is even thrown. It's why moving a player like Loperfido, as painful as it might be emotionally, makes such cold, logical sense. Of course, there's the human element, and it matters. Joey Loperfido was excellent last year. He proved he belonged. He showed flashes of being more than just depth. There's always the argument that injuries happen, that insurance is valuable, that opportunity can arise overnight. We saw it last season when injuries forced the Jays to dig deeper than planned. In theory, Loperfido could be that next man up, offering more offensive upside than Miles Straw if the center field door suddenly creaks open. But theory and preference aren't the same thing, and the Jays have shown time and again how much they value Straw's defense and reliability. They have a comfort zone, and Loperfido sits just outside it. That's why the rumors refuse to die. They linger because they're rooted in realism rather than wishful thinking. And if you're enjoying this breakdown so far, don't forget to tap that like button and subscribe, because this off-season is far from done. Zooming out slightly, this conversation doesn't exist in isolation. The Jays have been linked to infielders, outfielders, and nearly every interesting free agent on the market, but the bullpen remains a quiet priority. Tyler Rogers was a solid addition, but beyond the top tier, the options become less reassuring. Names like Tommy Nance, Brennan Little, and others offer intrigue, but not certainty. One more proven arm could be the difference between optimism and confidence. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the division, the chessboard is shifting. Reports suggest the Yankees are heavily pursuing Cody Bellinger while seemingly backing away from other major targets. If New York improves selectively rather than explosively, it subtly alters the balance of power in the AL East. Sometimes, your path forward is shaped not just by your own moves, but by the moves your rivals don't make. That's why these quieter updates matter more than they seem. The Pirates, incidentally, have been active too, signing Ryan O'Hearn, a reminder that even rebuilding teams have their own agendas. Every transaction ripples outward, influencing negotiations you never see. Perhaps that makes a Loperfido trade harder, perhaps it shifts focus elsewhere. That uncertainty is part of the drama, part of what makes following this game endlessly compelling. As we sit here, on the edge of the next few days, the sense of anticipation is undeniable. Trades feel imminent. Decisions feel close. Joey Loperfido stands at the center of it all, not as a star, but as a symbol of how baseball values timing, fit, and opportunity over sentiment. Whether his move tomorrow or remains as insurance into spring training, his situation tells us a lot about where the Blue Jays believe their window truly lies. So as this chapter of the off-season continues to unfold, keep your eyes open and your expectations flexible. This is how contenders are built, not just through headlines, but through smart, sometimes uncomfortable decisions made in the margins. Drop your thoughts in the comments, let everyone know where you stand on a potential Loperfido trade, and if you haven't already, like, share, and subscribe so you're right here when the next twist inevitably arrives.